That's right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the worldwide phenomenon that we call According to Flint. Today, I welcome my guest and honored, proud to welcome a good friend. He's a Pro Rodeo Hall of Famer. I always say the year, the 1985 Rookie of the Year. He's an 8-time world champion, and here's our connection. A fellow Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Famer. That's where we connect, Joe. He is the one and only.
And also, your girls are my girls.
Yeah, that's right. My baby girls, my good friend Joe Beaver. Hey, you know, Joe, I was thinking before you connected here and we went on the air, everything we've ever done, you've been on my radio shows, my stage show in Vegas. We've done an NFR preview show with Steve Kenyon. There's always a time limit. There's always a commercial coming up. We talk for 8 or 9 minutes and then, okay, we'll do it again. Hey, we could talk for an hour. Guess what? No commercials.
For an hour too.
We can talk for an hour.
This.
And not only may we talk for an hour, we have the ability to talk for an hour. And
there's nobody stopping you. You're the man here, see, so I can just follow you wherever you go.
My name's on the sign.
That's right.
Right there. That's my name on the sign. Let's get to first things first. Current events here. We talked a little before we went on air, but it's a hard year. It's been a hard year for everybody, financially, emotionally, everything. I feel bad for my friends in Vegas. I'm having trouble celebrating the NFR in Texas. I'm glad the National Finals Rodeo is going to happen, but man, that Vegas, what a devastating year for that city.
You know, and I'm in Texas. Everybody's calling me, aren't you so happy it's there? And, all about Texas and that. To me, Flint, Vegas is NFR. NFR is Vegas. The first year I made them was the first year out there. And I just, I guess I assume that when it's December, it's Vegas time. And this year with everything happening, like you said, it's not. And what a hit Vegas has taken. You just stop and think about, and the people I feel for, let's just say the waiters, waitresses, housekeeping, valet attendants, the dealers. All those people that have learned to maybe strive with December coming around where it used to be a dead time and a down time, and now it's a booming time for 3 weeks there. I feel for those people as much as I do for the casinos and the airport and everything else that's involved with the rodeo. It's a big hit.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've brought that up in the entertainment business. People look at the entertainers and the athletes when it's more the crew behind it that does all the work. But when I talk to you about Las Vegas with people, especially up in a place like Montana where for the most part, the majority of people have never been, it's a faceless corporation that owns these casinos. They'll be fine. We know better. These are real people. Besides the valet, all of the people you mentioned, I'm close with Michael Gahn, Ryan Growney, everybody at the South Point. Those are real people going through this.
All of them over there, there's here's what I think people forget. Yeah, they're a faceless corporation behind them maybe, but there's real people running them. And real people are the ones that have to answer to the corporations regardless of a pandemic or whatever, Why aren't your numbers good? Why aren't you making this? Why aren't you filling? And this year has just set all that aside like nothing mattered. You know what I mean? And I think it does matter. I'm like you. Am I glad it's going on? I am glad. I'm glad Texas stepped up, and moved on with it. That's great. But it's gonna be a different feel. Everything not being right there like normal.
Yeah, I've seen comments. I go through and look at. I shouldn't do it, but I look at comments on social media just to get a feel. Keep my finger on the pulse of kind of what people are thinking. And I've seen people say, "Oh yeah, it's in Texas where it should be." Those are people that have never gone to it in Vegas. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? It's been there so many years now, 30 years or whatever. Flint, actually, if you haven't been in 30 years, you can't appreciate the NFR anyway nowadays, I think.
No,
because it's such a show out there, It's production, it's timing, it's show. My dad, You know, my dad's been dead since '06, but he wouldn't go to another rodeo after he went to the national finals for 4 or 5 years because he said that's how rodeo's supposed to be. You know, the best, the fastest, it doesn't keep you there 3 hours. That's all he would go to. So I think the people, you know, voicing their opinions that haven't been there in 15 or 20 years, they need to go out there before they voice their opinions.
Yeah. You know, you bring up a good point. That was your first NFR was Las Vegas's first NFR. When you grew up, kind of like I did, you're older, we'll just say that. But you grew up like I did where, you know, we'd gather for the final night of the NFR, the one night that was on TV in Oklahoma City, the Heston telecast. When you went for the first time, was there a part of you, though, that went, man, I finally made it to the NFR, and I don't get to go to Oklahoma City. I have to go to Vegas? I mean, the tables are kind of turned there, aren't they?
They were, but I think I was so excited because of the money. You know, back then, around paid like $7,800 or, you know, somewhere right there. And I thought that was just, you know, such a huge amount of money that, and then everybody had been to Oklahoma City. And I remember a friend of mine that I amateured rodeo with a lot. When I made him the first year, he said, you know, here's the deal. It's a new rodeo. It's a new venue. Go make it your place. You're a new guy there. You know, and I was like, that kind of hit me as odd because he said, everybody, you know, there's the ghost of the winning past, they call it, you know, in Oklahoma City, go out there and make it new. And I didn't really think nothing of it, Flint, until I topped the hill coming in, driving in, you know, and when you get back then, when you get, you know, through Henderson, you top, there was nothing for a long ways, but you could see it was nighttime when we got there. And I remember topping the hill and just seeing all the lights and stuff. And I thought, you know what? This is in Oklahoma City, Dorothy. You better get your stuff together.
That's funny. He said, go make it your place. And that it's funny with the success you had in Vegas, as much success as anybody had. Then it became the house that Joe built, Thomas and Mack.
Yeah, I think it was a good time for both of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were needing to sell it somehow, and I was needing to prove I belonged. And I think Tallman picked it up both ways. And you know how you can so eloquently just push it forward with the voice. I think he pushed it on.
Will world champions this year, will it have an asterisk beside it like a strike year in the NFL, a strike year in the NBA, even though it's not the guy's fault? With the number of rodeos cut down, will we forget that world champion 2020 is a little different standard than the rest? What do you think? Are we getting a true feel for who the world champion is? I mean, I know the politically correct answer is, oh yes, they're great cowboys. It is different though.
You know what, Flint, to this day, I still know people, and I wasn't around or anything, but I think 77 or 76 when they crowned the world champion at the national finals only.
Yeah.
And I think there's people that still feel that way against those guys.
I hear it all the time.
You know what I mean? We hear it. And like you say, politically correct, they're world champions, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, yes. They went to 50, 70, 80. Some guys went to the max rodeos, probably close. But I think and I don't think it's fair to the guys because I think the guys, you're going to still have to win at the national finals. I think the money's going to be good enough where they can be, still overtaken if somebody gets hot.
Sure.
So I think it's kind of a bad rap, but I still think that probably some people are going to say, well, yeah, 2020, that wasn't a full year.
Completely.
You know what I mean? It's those couch quarterbacks that always call you halfway through the finals and tell you what you need to be doing to win more while they're at home watching, And I'm like, I always have a problem taking calls from those people.
Yeah.
But I think you make a good point. I'm not going to judge them different because I know what that road's like. And I also going to put this out there for all those people that think this was an easy year. You've never rodeoed until these this generation, they had to drive from Burley, Idaho to Abilene, Texas. They had to drive from Sykes to Missouri to somewhere, Idaho. They didn't know how to do that. They were calling and drive home 14 hours. Welcome to our world. That's what we did. In the early 90s, late 80s, there was one good rodeo a week. Flint, there's 2 or 3 $5,000 rodeos a week nowadays, or $10,000 rodeos. And back then there wasn't. So they've had to kind of grind it out and earn it. And those, I was talking to Boudreaux. I saw him in the airport the other day, and he was flying back and forth and around and through. those guys haven't done that, but they had to chase that dollar this year.
Exactly.
So I feel like it's a world championship earned.
Yeah. A couple world champions when they did. Chris Ledoux won his world championship at the NFR. Isn't that the year Donnie Gay had his streak interrupted? Butch Kirby beat him. Am I on the right track?
So 77 or so right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask Donnie. He could tell you for sure.
Donnie, yeah, we could call him right now. And man, let me tell you, I should have been the world champion. I came in as the world champion. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Gladstone, won that year. Jim Gladstone.
Oh, uh-huh.
And everybody talked about, hey, man, it still goes back. Barry Burke said it best one time. He said, the guy that wins the most in the fourth quarter usually plays the best in the playoffs and wins the end. So, it still goes down the national finals. I don't care if, what the rounds are going to pay this year. I sure hope they pay close. I think they're working to try to get it to close to the same. But you let a guy get hot. You let Casey Field go in there or Tim O'Connell and win 7 rounds or 6 rounds. And guess what? They're probably still going to be world champs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of the NFR, as long as we're on that topic, you've become like a staple of the telecast at the NFR, and assuming you're still.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is, here's what I feel. I started, hosting the buckle ceremonies after the rodeo every night with Randy Corley. I would, I'd either go to the rodeo a few nights or watch it closed circuit. Mm-hmm. And what I started doing, just so you know, the last couple of years is going to my room because it was on a network that I could get in my hotel room. Right. I started watching the actual telecast, and people say, wouldn't you rather go and watch? Wouldn't you rather watch it closed circuit like you're being there? I said, no, because I have to interview the winners every night. And I learn more from Joe Beaver to interview them. There's just a lot of aspects. And I think that's what you've brought is who changed horses, whose horse isn't working. So now they're on the gray horse. This is a gray horse that we saw him ride this horse in Abilene. This pen of calves does it. That's fun. And I'm sure you get feedback to bring that to the people.
I do. And I thank Jeff Metters for bringing me in a long time ago on this. And I think some of the best advice that I ever had was a lady that was probably 80 years old, right after the first time I did it, maybe the first year or two. She said, I enjoy watching it now because you bring the insight that nobody wants to say. And I was like, well, no, nobody knows it. She said, yes, they do, but they just don't want to say it. Yeah. And, I catch some flack about maybe talking about, well, this guy's horse is not running by and getting his feet on the ground. That's why he's 4 instead of 3. But I'm just telling people what they actually see, but I'm letting them know that they're understanding it. My dad told me years ago, he said, you know what you're watching, but if you can't bring some fun and some insight, some entertainment into what the people are actually seeing, they're not going to lock on to those events. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think I try to do. And I'm lucky too, Flint, because a lot of these guys are younger that I didn't compete with, but some been to my clinics or I've seen them at the high school finals or I've, wrote with their parents or whatever. So I get to stay around the young guys like John Douch and Kobe Douch, and I see Weston and, Ike Fontenot and Youngblood and all those guys. Tough. I've seen him grow up, and Shad. So, and in a team roping, all the guys that are the older guys, I roped with some of those. And I think it brings a little bit of a personalized opinion is all it is maybe. Sure. But it's more entertaining on one side, but it's more informative on the other. So I want to be informative, but I want to keep it fun.
There's different standards in Western sports, in rodeo. That's our background. If you watch an NFL game, a guy drops a pass, and the commentator, the analyst, usually a former player, is the color commentary, like yourself. They'll say, if you're a pro, you got to make that catch. That's just what they do on TV with other pro sport. Basketball, you got to make that shot. For some reason, when we do that in rodeo, there's a different standard of rodeo. I have an old saying, cowboys want to be treated like professional athletes until they get treated like professional athletes. Right. Why is that? In this sport, all you're doing is talking about what's going on in front of you, which sportscasters should do. Why is our standard so different? Why can't we, hey, at the NFR in Vegas, guys riding for 27 grand a round. Why can't we criticize them? Why is our standard different?
And I think that's what, me being me, I really don't care. I'm going to call it like I see it, and like I said, I get some, calls from guys, hey man, back off, change horses and it'll be better. I'm not going to back off if I see it, and I've done, the thing about it is I've done all 3 events out there. And the hardest event for me to call, because it's not because I haven't done it, because I get to see it right close and personal where I'm at usually, is the barrel race, because it's a fine line of what I, can get away with saying the reason that horse did not turn, and the reason I'm not going to blame it on a good horse that I've seen work everywhere when he can't hold the ground. Do I get some, from higher powers? I get a little bit come back from the higher powers sometimes. But also, I'm not going to have that girl corner me in the parking lot and, tell me, hey, why that my horse went down or slipped or hit the barrel. So I've got to be a fine line there. The other 3 events, I've been there. I've done all 3. I haven't steer wrestle, but I've hazed. Hazing is the hardest event in the national finals at the time to event in, because that is the most thankless job in America. It's like a pickup man. You never get called out until you miss a haze or drop somebody, or run over him on the ground.
Never notice them until it.
Never notice them till then. So I think that helps me, because if I call them out, when they've missed one, or rope the leg to win, I've been in that position with guys, so I know what it feels like. But I also know you have to capitalize. This isn't. And I tell you, you've heard me tell them at my clinics, I give prizes, buckles, jack. We have matches. But I don't give you anything. This isn't the, youth soccer league where if you can run down the field and you don't fall down, I'm going to give you a trophy. That's not our sport. Our sport is you win, you get paid, So I think that lets me maybe have a little more insight to be able to call it like I see it. But some of the guys still don't like it. But you know what? When you're at this level, and I've done it to myself, and I used to tell them all the time, when you ride out of the arena, you've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes about 10 minutes for a reporter to find you. If you've done really good, they won't find you. If you mess up and cost yourself a gold buckle or a big go-around win, they'll find you before you can get over being upset. So that point of it is you got to get past it. I understand. But also, I've missed one in there for a gold buckle, I can call them when they go left and somebody's misses one. Marty missed one a couple years ago. I said, I know how you feel. I've done it, but we have to catch. I think we're just a little more maybe self-protective of our event, but it's no different than the man that makes 100 free throws and misses that one to win the playoff game. You can't miss a horse out there. You can't slap a bull, and you can't miss a steer if you want to be a champion. Yeah.
The great thing, and for people listening who don't maybe know, you're not in a studio. You're not on the set at the NFR. I think your spot where you get to stand right by the timed event shoot, I mean, when a guy's backed in the box, you could reach out and touch, you could reach out and slap him on the leg. There are times that arena isn't always noisy. And I always find it interesting. Listen, this guy, he should have been doing better. He should have switched horses a long time ago. And I can just see this guy back in the box and look over and say, screw you, Beaver.
Who the hell are you?
Screw you. As anybody, do they ever say, I was backed in the box and I could hear what you were saying?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times I'll come back after open back around and want to talk. Well, I got my headphones on. I'm trying to call it, and they'll be pulling me back and pull my headphone away so I can hear them. And it's kind of funny. I think the guys that are fierce competitors and winners, like the Ryan Jarrett's, the Haven Medgets, the ones I've known forever, I think every now and then it's kind of I know when I backed in there, I could always hear Bob Tallman. I don't care who else was in the arena.
Yeah.
I could hear, but Tallman would talk to you. Tallman would talk to me. And then when I backed up in there, a lot of times I had years and years ago, like Mike Smith and Steve Duhan and, Gary Green. Actually hear them, and it made me snap to it. So I think sometimes they do hear me. I think sometimes I want them to hear me because I think it's a little bit of a brain boom to change you, to get you thinking, if it bothers them, they'll tell me, and if it bothers them and I'm calling it like I see it, I really don't care. because people out there, watching want to know, why is he so long in the box? Why is he late? Well, he's picking up when he nods. So the next time he comes in, I say, well, this guy last time, he picked up right when he nodded and he was late on a good calf. He should have won. Well, maybe that just sparks you a little, hey man, don't pick up this time, So I don't know. Imagine some of them probably, there's a very few that maybe like it. There's some that accept it, and there's probably some that hate it. But I'm trying to bring an understanding of the event at hand to the people that are watching it that aren't you and I.
It's funny. I'm just thinking as you're talking, you say, Bob Tallman always talked to me. Never thought of that. That's a unique thing about Tallman. When you say that, come on, cowboy, you need to, he does address. I never thought about that. That you notice that, yeah.
He sells it to the crowd, but he also personalized it always, and Boyd was good about it. Yeah. They personalized what they were selling to the crowd through you, and you knew that if he was talking about it, and there was a lot of criticism he got for this. He really did it back because they were like, well, you got to quit doing that. You're helping that guy. No, you're not. No. You're selling it to the crowd, but if that guy's smart enough to listen and hear you, don't put that off on the, announcers. I just always knew that when they were selling me, if I was winning a lot, he was going to talk good about what I was doing, and I was going to get pumped up. I went one summer, Flint, and I tell people this all the time. I ran either 30 or 32 head of calves. I never won a check. That's a lot of calves in July and August. That's plane, trains, automobiles, I was about ready just to, start throwing it left-handed and closing my eyes. It was just terrible. And I remember just fighting through it, and it all turned around on one run. And then I won everything. Well, I remember getting to San Francisco that year, and Tallman, was doing the Cow Palace last one of the year. And I'm riding in the short go, and I thought, came from, 30th to 5th or 6th, whatever, in 2 months. And he's like, yeah, should have seen this guy back in the summer. Never thought he'd be at the short go at the Cow Palace. And I remember thinking, gosh, dang, but he was right. Now I'll fall back in where I'm supposed to be, so I don't know. I hope it helps a little bit.
Yeah. Man, you look back at the NFR in your era, not so much 85. You can help me here. When you get to the early 90s, I remember being at the NFR. The first time I went and watched the NFR was December of 1990. And went a couple of years after that, and the calf roping would start, honestly, and people would go pee.
Yeah, yep.
There was a time.
About 92, 91 or 2, though, it turned around.
What an era of the biggest stars at the NFR and the funnest event to watch. Remember, it got to where, man, here we go, calf roping. Some of those guys, it was you and Fred. Who are some of them?
Cody, Blair Burt, Brent Lewis. Sean McMullen, Jeff Chapman, Bud Ford. I mean, there was, there was just a pile of us right there in that era that Troy Pruitt,
Troy, yeah.
Ray Rabin, those guys didn't go a lot right after they won, Rabin, Kristen, but it was almost like, and me and Brent Lewis and I were talking about the other day, not taking nothing away from anymore at all. Don't get me wrong. Those guys, it's turned into a speed contest, where the calves are, good, and it's supposed to be fast, and it is, and they've learned how to really time fast and control it. Mm-hmm. But when you made your run back then, you ride out and there's the victory lap horse right there, and they tell you, if you're winning, get off and get your stirrups set. We wouldn't even touch that victory lap horse because you knew that it didn't matter. Out of that 15, there was 10 guys that were just as dominant and capable as you on any calf in there, except the ones that, kicked or whatever. So, and I remember one of the last years I went, in the last go around, I was 7 flat or 7-1 or whatever. So I ride out and they tell me, hey, and there was 3 guys left, and I got off my horse, and Cody hadn't roped. And I just stepped back. And they said, hey, get ready. You're going to tell. I said, listen, Cody O's the last roper. But he's winning the world. He's just got to tie one down to place an average, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And I told the guy, I turned around and said, listen, no offense, but I'm not getting on and have to get off, take the stirrups off for that little guy. because he's the last roper. And he was 6'7" or 6'8" or whatever, So we just knew in that era there for about, 92 to 04, really.
Right.
It dominated. I'm not saying the event. That crew dominated tie-down roping and propelled it to where now it's I think it's one of the probably three most holding events at the NFR,
Yeah.
And I throw the saddle bronc riding and the barrel race in with that. I really do, because the saddle bronc riding, I think those guys have done such a good job of either the horsepower now. And I say those guys, stock contractors.
Right.
They have the power now to buck you off in the bronc riding at any given moment. It used to be, it wasn't, eliminators and TV pin and other ones that was get by. Now, every night, I stand over that gate and I watch. I want to see the bronc ride, So, yeah, tie down roping, I think that time, you're right. 92 to about 04,
yeah.
just kicked it up and made it huge,
I'm such a Bulldogging fan.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'm a little guy, and I think the steer wrestling, it comes right after the second event. Mm-hmm. Man, I love the steer wrestling. For one, you got to admit, Bulldoggers, they're like horses. The bigger they are, the nicer they are.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Bulldoggers are just kind of always there for each other.
I say all the time, Flint. Honest, I think they're honestly the most brotherhood, caring group of contestants in any event. They actually care when they tell you something. I'm not sure all the other events are like that, but the steer wrestlers, they really are. And there were the days, I like it in that building so much because it's so, any tiny mistake, and you're screwed in that arena. If you miss the barrier you won't get by one. If you leave too early, you're going to, when it wants to stop will stop. Any mistake in that arena shows like, just a big white spot at a black night. You know what I mean? A big black spot over the sun. Everybody sees it right then. So that's what intrigues me with the steer wrestling in the Thomason mat.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus, being a guy my size, I like to have the Bulldoggers on my side when we're out in public. If something goes down.
There was a time when all the big guys weren't always that friendly. That era that I came in with, they were friendly until, but they were friendly until, and I had a lot of fun with those guys. I probably instigated a lot, and they finished it, but we had a lot of fun.
You did that? That's hard to believe. We
were talking the other day. Mike Smith,
Yeah. That's who popped into my head, Mike Smith.
The hurricane just devastated, Jeff Corbello, Mike Smith, Potato Font, John, all those went through just hell, So anyway, we've been talking and visiting stuff, and Mike was talking about how they got all this, stuff out and left before the hurricane hit. And honestly, Flint looks like he dropped a bomb on his place, So I was trying to make, get some fun the other day, laugh. And I said, hey, did you get that main trophy that we won together? And he was a little silent. He was thinking, we ain't won anything. And he said, you mean on my world champion stuff? I got all of it out. I told you. I said, no. I said, did you get that arm wrestling trophy from New Mexico? He went to laugh, and he said, I didn't even think about that. We were in a bar one night in New Mexico, and they were having a state arm wrestling championship. And I said, can anybody enter? And they looked at me, and they're like, well, sure. I said, good. I put Mike Smith down. And he won the thing. And we had to get out. We had to get escorted. The bar owners put us in a van and took us, the delivery van, and took us out the back to our hotel because they all wanted to kill us for entering that guy. That's the power those guys had, and the nice streak in them, the fun. But those times like that, that's the stuff that made rodeo with the big guys fun. Yeah.
I want to touch on the clinics you do, but the kids you deal with. But when you were, the kids, you could see a lot of kids from 8 years old to guys who want to rope better. And what about when when you were small, when you're 11, 12 years old, who was the guy that you looked at and said, I want to rope like that guy? Bam.
There was two guys. there was 2 guys in South Texas, you know, and that's where I was. I didn't see any, you know, I went to the slacks with my dad when I was real young. My dad braided picking strings, nylon picking strings for the tie down ropers. And he would take an arm load to San Antonio, and that's how I met Barry Burt, you know, and the guys like that. But I didn't know it. I didn't see anybody, but there was 2 guys, Bubba Kendricks and Mark Dearman, and they were in South Texas, and both of them should have made the national finals as many times as they wanted. Bubba Kendricks had the ability to use a long rope like nobody I've ever seen to this day. He's 76 years old, lives right down the road from me. Matter of fact, I'm going to take him to lunch tomorrow because I want him to come watch a horse go. Uh-huh. He, Flint, until he was 56 years old, he made a living amateur rodeoing down here. It's not easy amateur rodeoing down here.
Oh,
but
no.
He could catch him. He roped them in ones, so he had time to flank and tie. Mark Dearman was the best guy to this day, maybe, besides Larry Robinson with his string, that I've ever seen flanking and tying. Mark Dearman was a beast when his foot hit the ground. He was a lot like Weston Hughes is now. Weston Hughes is a beast when his foot hits the ground.
I watched a run of his last night, actually. Amazing.
For years, when he learned to use the tip of his loop and rope the necks instead of throwing just a brick loop hard, you know, he would make the national finals from now on. Did you see his loop last night, how pretty it was, and his curl? Because he's a beast on the ground. Mark Dearman is who my dad and I tried to copy from the time my foot hit the stirrup, and Bubba Kendricks is the guy I tried to copy from the time I nodded till I caught. Huh. They were just unbelievable, man. They were unbeatable down here, you know. Right. And you know, when I first cracked out amateuring, Jim Fuller made national finals 2 or 3 times, you know. Jim Fuller, Bubba Kendricks, Mark Dearman, Jimmy Hodge was down here then. Sylvester was down here quite a bit. I mean, you learned from the guys that you knew once you got to the big show, they should have been there. All they wanted. Silver made it a couple times, don't get me wrong. Right, but like Jimmy and Bubba and Mark and all those, they should have been there. You know, you realize, hey, you know what? The guys I was beating and competing with, they were just as tough as these guys here. And I really think that's what helped me go into the, you know, PRCA at 19 and thought it was just another day, because I didn't know any different. You know, the Tom Walkers and the guys up there, I was so used to that level of competition. Yeah, it was a little different when you threw, you know, Raymond and Roy and John and, you know, Dave and all those guys in, and it was Mike McLaughlin, but it was no different competition wise because I had been with the best, and I tried to copy those 2.
You put on clinics, breakaway ropers for the girls, calf roping schools for the boys. You know, it always impresses me, not to get into too much of the technicalities of a clinic, but for one, the biggest thing, the way I deal in my life and the way I kind of judge people, I guess I judge the quality of your clinics by the way you follow up after. That's the biggest compliment I could give you. I've never seen anything. You'll be walking in Cowboy Christmas and some obscure teenage 17-year-old girl comes up and you say, hey, baby girl, and give her a hug. How you been roping in Missouri? You really keep up with those kids. That means more to them than learning to rope good.
You know, I think, Flint, that's the reward part for me because, you know, it's like I got videos last night from some girls in Idaho, you know, and one from Washington. You know, why is this not working? What am I doing? Well, if I didn't really care, I shouldn't have been there the first time. You know what I mean? If I'm just doing them to get your money, I'm not doing the clinics the right way. You know, my dad told me years ago at a clinic, he said, let me tell you something. 2 things. So what's that? He said, first of all, know who you're talking to. And second of all, you remember how they rope, because at some point they're going to call you wanting some help and not want to come back to you or don't have time or growed up. So the fun part of me is when I see them, you know, and when they actually send videos, I tell them, if you'll send me a video or text me, I'll get back with you probably. It might not be tomorrow. I'll get back with you, because that means they actually know that I care enough. I cared enough time that I'll come help again. And that's the reward for me. That's kind of what it was all about. You know, the winning's all great, don't get me wrong. And we all strive to be the best we can be and win all we can be. And like you hit the you hit the pinnacle of your business. You know, the PBR, when you walked in that, you know, you're being Ring of Honor probably, you know, of a not a bull rider, but that's where you're at. But the reward is what you did on the way there.
Mm-hmm.
And my reward is the kids that let me still help or let me still be involved, you know, even the guys that are, you know, I've had guys, you know, make the finals or making the finals been in my clinics. That's how long I've been around, you know. But it's the same, that guy means the same to me as that little girl that sends me a video from Little Britches finals or calls me from the high school finals crying because it didn't work the first time. Well, let's fix it for the second time, you know.
Yeah.
That's my reward, I think, is what you see.
I've been to the Little Britches finals and the Little Bitches finals. So
yeah, got hung up there for a minute.
It's my show. Well, I know, you know, and you know this. My daughter Shelby's 21. She's a senior in college, Montana State.
Yeah.
I took her to Livingston, Montana, in that cold barn. The wind was howling through the seams, and she was 7th grade, I think, and she wanted to rope. And as you said that at one time, we just hoped the roping gods would run a calf through her loop.
We fought it, but we got it.
And they just, every time you're around, her end page, they just keep going to your clinics when they can. But I think the thing I miss about coaching is it's not so much like teaching. You can see results right away. You see the results. And just like with Shelby, I think she's as good a roper as in college rodeo. You know, she battles things like everybody else, but man, that's good to see. I just, to see the results, I know in me when I was coaching.
You do that, okay, times 200. You know, that's what I get out of the deal. Or like in my junior opens, you know, I'll be trying to do stuff and the kid will stop me. You know, here, watch him, Joe, tell me what, you know, well, that was my kid from somewhere. So, you know, you got a choice to make. That rope is going to go ahead and it's going to go. It may have a hitch you're going to fix, but that kid right there, that might be the difference of making them stay hooked or not, you know, so you stop. If you care, you stop and watch that video and you tell them your best opinion. You know, you may have 5 seconds to think, but if I watch you give an honest opinion, then I've done what I'm supposed to do. And, you know, just like your girls, I can see them anywhere and they've changed so much. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what you have to watch. You know, boys will change and you can kind of recognize them, you know, all the time. But girls, when they come to my school, they'll have their hair tied back, you know, or they may have no makeup on, you know, that day or whatever. But as they get older and they change, you've got to look from their eyes and their cheekbones up. Usually it'll stay the same, you know, but they'll have a hat on or they'll have their hair different. And man, you'll have to think, who? But if you bond with them, you'll recognize them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for anybody listening, if there's a Joe Beaver clinic anywhere near, I tell people all the time that not everybody can teach. There's greats out there that can't teach, but I love your clinics. I've sat in on a few of them and I love it. But
we have good times at them. We had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
You had a good time. You know, the first time you were there, in and out, going to be busy, and then the next time you stayed a little longer. So you know, Shelby and I was like, okay, now you really got to rope good because he's staying today.
Here, a good topic that I thought recently on this podcast, we had JB Mooney.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. And you can relate a popular topic with JB and with me, with fans trying to explain. There are certain guys who hate to lose more than other guys. As JB said, I think on this podcast, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. You have told me stories. Tough Hedeman he hated losing. Yeah. So you would, I remember you at the NFR and you go back 25 years and the fact that any Cowboys either way showed emotion, celebrating or being pissed, crowds didn't like it. Remember my uncle, that Joe Beaver, he won't get the time he wants and he kind of and throws a little fit, hates to lose. There's nothing wrong with hating to lose.
No, and here's my deal. I always told them, it's not against anything but me.
That's right.
The time I messed up, I let my family down. You know, I roped for a living. I roped for money. And I think a lot of guys now, and I'm not saying It's different. But we roped for survival and to have something, put up. I'm thinking now a lot of guys rope for headlines. They, rope for first or nothing. Well, we roped for money. And I think when I would mess up, I turned it internally. Like, hey, you dumbass, can you not make why did you do that? I remember one year I break the barrier in the 8th or 9th round. All I had to do, Flint, I had caught him. I had caught up. I was winning second the average. It was a done deal. Don't break the barrier, don't miss. You win another gold buckle. But I had the best calf on him, and it paid $10,000, $13,000, whatever it paid, I break the barrier to win the round. I get back on my horse, and and everybody's like, I said, believe me, you didn't want to see what I was telling myself, because you couldn't believe how stupid I was. So I think once people kind of realized that it was a John McEnroe, you know what I mean, fit, but it was turned internally. People understood it, but I didn't really care if they did or not, because that was all about me, my competitive level. As much as like Fred said one time, as much as we practice, much as we prepare, as much as we're ready, when we mess up, we've let ourselves down. And I think that was how tough I was. There was a couple bareback riders like that back in the day, There was a couple saddleback riders, I won't name names because, they were, but JB is like that. And another thing I think is so special about JB and what I hope for him, I remember people telling me, every time, and I had a lot of injuries for a time vet guy, but I sacrificed my body from the time I was 16 years old. I ran too many practice calves. I roped too big of calves, all that, whatever that people say. But every time I came back from an injury, it was self-satisfaction to show I could come back. Right. I could show you, hey, I've been hurt. I'm still back beating you. And that's what I think people judge JB need to leave it alone. They don't know how hurt you are when you're sucking it up and you're tough and you're competing. You know what I mean? I wore braces under my jeans because I didn't want people to see I had 2 braces on, both tore up knees, because that was a weakness. I don't want you to see I'm weak here. I had injections. I've injected everything you could inject when it was hurt to keep competing. And JB is like that in that board. When you say dirty tough, he's dirty tough. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for me, and we talked about this on the phone the other day, I asked him, is he healed? We were just talking. He was hauling some fighting bulls. And I said, he healed it. Yeah, I'm good. I would love for him to have that 1 year where he comes back and just sticks it on. Then he can say, like I did, I've had enough. See y'all, if he wants to. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember, clearly the last one I ran in the tie-down roping. I remember stepping across him at Pinoca, and I had calf down to win the go-around. I couldn't cross the legs. My hip just stayed out here, and I thought, come on, leg. I couldn't make my leg cross. So when I got up, I handed my horse back to Chad Johnson. I borrowed his horse that day. Yeah. And he said, leave the stirrups down. You'll go first tonight. I said, no, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm done. He said, no, you'll be. I said, no, I'm never run another one. And I didn't run another tie-down calf in the pro rodeos ever. The next thing I ran was when I roped at the American, that invite thing. But I knew I was done, but I had proved myself enough that I had self-satisfaction. But that goes back to that guy that hates to lose, Flint. I wanted to go out on my terms, not on everybody else's, because they thought I needed to. So therefore, winning was the same way. Tub Hedeman and I would watch him ride bulls, and I'd pull ropes for guys. I wanted to see that competitive grit before if I was up in the slack, I'd go watch him before I went. That if JB Mooney would have been entered back then, I went and watched him.
Yeah. Yeah. Before, we'll wrap it up a little, but one thing I try to bring up with people, but it's a hard topic because you don't want to sound feeling sorry for yourself, and a tough topic to talk about. But I think one of the hardest things I've discovered, and I know you can relate some things you've been through in your life, people you've lost. I think living a public life, I've discovered something that no matter how much you're in front of people, you still have a personal life that's not always going good. Oh, and when we step out to put a clinic on, like you have things happen to you, go to a clinic, you got to embrace people and smile. It's not a regular job. That's a hard, It can wear on a guy. I don't know how else to lead you to kind of talk about that, but you've been through some stuff through your professional life that had to do with you personally that you almost have to cover up once in a while.
Yeah, and I decided early on, hey, if you want to judge me, you're going to have an open book to look at. You know what I mean? It's just like when I OD'd. I OD'd in February of 1991. I had a drug problem, man. I roped hurt, and easiest way to rope hurt is not feel nothing, And I remember, battling and going and getting on it, getting off, getting on it, getting off. And I remember I went to Lee Ferris, a good friend of mine, made the national finals in the 60s, has golf courses in California. And I went out there in the spring of 90 and I said, hey, Lee, I got, I've got no money. I've spent it all. My talents went to, I'm out of shape. I don't know what to do. He said, I'll tell you what to do. Come out here, I'm going to buy you 10 calves. You get away from everybody. Let's see what we can do. That's what friends do. He got me through it. Man, I got off, got straightened up, got in shape, rope practiced all spring in California. Had a great year that year. My Jenna comes, she's pregnant. We get married at Reno that year. Got things turned around, going good, rolling. 1 week later, two of my best friends that actually were living with me at the time. We were off rodeoing all summer, but their stuff was in my house in Huntsville. You killed in a plane crash. David Bowen, Randy Deerham, along with Dave Smith and Mike Kern and the pilot. Yeah. Those two were my guys. All of a sudden I got things turned around going my direction. I'm thinking, and boom, So the easiest way to me to deal with is get away from it again, So there I am, right back to where I started. And I fight it all fall. Brody's born in November the 20th, but that year, man, I'm needing to win. I'm struggling. I got a wife. I've got a baby coming. I've lost my friends. When you have to clean your friends' closets out in your house, and you have to pallbearer for 5 days apart from David Bowen and Randy Deerham and I'd been tight friends since we were 10, 11 years old. They were like my brothers. I don't have brothers, but Mike Arnold and those two were like brothers. So I get all that handled. I go to Angelo to rope the big match. Woo, big money. They guarantee us 10 or 15,000, whatever it was back then to rope. I tear my knee up on the last calf. All I got to do is time in 20 to win the match. I need that 10,000 like, you can't imagine back then. I tear my knee up. I drag over there, knock the calf down, time. I'm 25. I don't win. I have surgery 2 weeks later. So the national finals is in 2 weeks. I got a baby boy November the 20th. I got the finals starting the 3rd. My knee's big as a watermelon. I go try to rope. To eat every pain pill I can. I get back on the powder. I try everything in the world. Nothing's working. So come around February that year, I OD. Well, guess what? When you're dead for 5 minutes or 3 minutes and whatever, that's too long. You're not supposed to rebound, I sat and had a conversation just like you and I with the people I had lost. It brings reality back. But the minute I came back, I realized, okay, guess what? The only thing good about this is maybe it can help somebody else. So don't hide this. Don't stay behind it. Don't be scared of it. My dad years ago said, when you make a decision, it's yours. Live with it. That was my decision that got me in all that. So ever since then, I never hid it. I've always, went to people I thought I could help. If they needed help, they come to me. So it's a public life that we put ourselves in. But people have no idea, Flint, how the outside world judges you by looking into your life until you're in the public, then rock on, I go back to winning. Everybody loves you, but they always know, the goods and the bads, and then I've been in just as good a situation as you could be for years. And then I lose Brody, lose my son, and we bury him the 1st September. Well, guess what? The tour finale's coming up. You got to go do it. The NFR's coming up. You got to go do it. That's what you're talking about. Is so hard to throw yourself out there in the public, and you can't let the baggage come with you at that moment. You got to do your show. You got to be open, but you always are open for the public once you become somebody. But you and I fought our whole lives to become somebody. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
Part of
it can be exhausting. I know that. Yeah, I mean, when you pour all your try to pour every bit of positive emotion into what you're doing, it's draining. And I watch you at those clinics, and on. I know you go home, put your feet up, and go. I know that. Before I let you go, I do want to say, I got asked, before we went on the air today, the guys that helped me, they say, and now I know you and Joe, you talk, how good of friends are you? And people will ask that about certain people. And I said, Joe and I are good friends. And I hope that's okay that I said that.
But we talked about this on your show one time, if you remember, 3 or 4 years ago. The thing that's neat about a friend is a friend knows the ins and outs of you. And I tell my boys this. I tell Kobe this all the time. I've told John, a friend knows you in and out. A friend is a guy you can use when you need him, and a friend's a guy that'll come help you when you don't think nobody else will. Okay, if you put all that together, that goes back for us now about, how old is Shelby?
21.
Okay, so put 10 years, then put 5 years before that or more, when Brody was real and Brody had to do the dead chicken flop because he thought that was the coolest thing he'd ever seen from Flint in the arena. You know what I mean? So, you are my friend, and a guy has about 10 in life, 15 if he's lucky, for as many people as we know. But, yeah, I always look forward to doing the show with you. I always look forward to my girls. I get texts from them every now and then when I just drop a line to check on them. But, yeah, and the thing about it is, I remember when you were catching so much flack, for leaving and going to the PBR and not being able to work any more rodeos and then NFR. People were talking all there, And I stopped one guy one time and I said, listen, before you judge what he's doing, do you know why he's doing it? Well, yeah, he thinks he's big time. I said, no. He's doing it because there's a chance to take care of his family money-wise a good way. There's a guaranteed stability job. He gets to be home when he wants, and it's the best that you can be in that world. And if he started out, 20 years ago thinking he was going to work the amateur finals and be happy, he should have never picked being a barrelman.
That's right.
So yeah, you're stuck with me. You're my friend.
I know. Dang it anyway. Well, let's, plan on me like always at the NFR, outside the barrel at the show. And we always have a good couple.
Yeah, I always try to get you on my show at night, but you're busy doing a buckle.
And I know.
Can't do it, but I'd love to have you one time on there so we can talk other stuff besides,
I know.
1976. That I want to talk about the new stuff happening.
I know. Well, and thank you for all the way you treat my girls. Man, they love Joe. Nobody taught my girls to rope like you did.
I tell them, once they're in my school, I say, hey man, once you're mine, you're always mine, unless you don't want to be. So, I got them older than that calling and needing help, wanting to change and open up, and like, I tell everybody, here's the thing I think about people too, Flint. We all want to be the best we can be, right? We strive for that, but it's not going to always be easy. And when it's not easy, that's when you need your friends or people that actually care.
Yep, that's right. Well, that's a good way to end it. I appreciate it. Listen, it was nice to chat with you without commercials, without telling me to wrap it up.
Take a break now.
Yeah, that's right. Joe, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time today. Joe Beaver, everybody, 8-time world champion. Right here, contributing to my life, according to Flint. Thanks, buddy.